All right, welcome back to the Trauma Therapist Podcast. My name is Guy McPherson. My mission is to help trauma therapists be their incredible selves, to be human, to be real, not just a clinician. I'm a big believer in who we are is more important than what we know. And this requires cultivating authenticity, genuineness, and vulnerability, and that requires intention. You can learn more about my courses and workshops by going to thetraumatherapistproject.com. That's thetraumatherapistproject.com. Let's get started. So 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Our folks, welcome back to the podcast. I am very excited to have back Dr. Aimie Apigian. Aimie, welcome back.
Thank you so much, Guy.
Excited to have you back. You know, last time we spoke, or the first time we spoke, you know, you just get it. I just get this feeling like this person, you just are on fire. You're passionate, and that's what I love about you, and it's why I wanted to bring you back. So, but we'll get into that.
I don't know very many other people, Guy, like you and me, who love to talk about trauma. I think that does make us unique.
Well, yeah, maybe that's what it boils down to. So Dr. Aimie is a board certified preventive medicine physician with a master's in biochemistry and a master's in public health. She's an author, speaker, and founder of Trauma Healing Accelerated LLC, as well as Family Challenge Camps, and host of the Bio Optimized Summit. We're going to talk about that. After a few years in a general surgery residency in Portland, Oregon, she decided to forge her career path as a trauma, attachment, and addiction medicine physician. She believes the healing journey can be accelerated through evidence-based tools and approaches to rewire the nervous system and the effects of chronic stress and trauma on the mind and body. Having both parented children with effects from trauma and attachment issues, and then having her own health challenges from chronic stress and traumas, she's intensely invested on finding what actually works practically on how to restore the body to its highest potential for health, optimizing the biology. Welcome back.
Thank you so much, Guy. I'm ready to dive into our topic today.
All right. Before we do, though, remind our listeners where you're from originally and where you are now.
I grew up in Washington State. I was actually born not too far from the Canadian border, over on the eastern side of Washington, central eastern Washington, and have since located to Southern California, but am also halfway between here and central Mexico, where I've been building a home and retreat center.
Wow. Exclamation point. So you're building a home and retreat center. How cool is that?
Yeah. You want to come? Let's.
Yeah. Seriously?
Yeah. No, amazing. I'm serious. Yeah.
When is that going to be up and running?
Well, I have started to live there when I go down. And so I'm looking at being able to host groups and workshops by the end of this year, 2023.
Wow. Exciting.
Yeah.
So, well, let's touch on, you said you loved talking about trauma and stuff. What is it about it that gets you going? If we can use that word within this context.
It's so misunderstood, and there's so much that we can do about it.
Misunderstood how?
One of the things that happened to me, and I know that this happens to a lot of other professionals, is that we get misdiagnosed with being stressed or having chronic stress when it's actually a trauma response in our body. And so we're being given the wrong diagnosis, if you want to call that a diagnosis. And so we're given the wrong tools. We're told to go manage our stress better, and thus to do stress management tools, not realizing that that's going to miss the mark if we're actually working with a trauma response that continues to play out in our body. And so it's so misunderstood because people think of trauma as, oh, this big event in my life, and whether I had it, whether I don't. And it's not that. Like the body will continue to live from this place of trauma without us ever knowing it, because we're still focused on some event that happened in our past, not realizing that, no, like this is our present moment experience and our present moment biology.
So just to recap a little bit, clarifying, correct me if I'm wrong here. So you're saying that many times, oftentimes, a lot of people misdiagnose it because they think it's a singular event. But in addition to that, are you also saying that trauma can be viewed on a continuum, like stress on one hand, and then all on the other end of the continuum is trauma?
Yeah, so trauma actually does happen on a very sequential process. So you have to go through the stress response to have a trauma response. In fact, the definition of a trauma response, if you look at it in what's happening in the body and the autonomic nervous system, is that the stress response gets overwhelmed, or else a person would be able to stay in that stress response and they would be staying in a very active place. And so just to walk through that trauma response, you initially have a startle. So we always have a startle to whatever is happening, even if it's a noise that turns out to be, oh, my kids dropped the toy or whatever, the door slammed unexpectedly, and we feel that little startle. We get this little burst of energy, but it doesn't take us all the way into that stress response until we see, oh, no, like the kitchen stove is on fire.
Right.
This is something serious. And then we move into full stress response, which is the sympathetic. And that sympathetic is there to move us to action. And so the way that it does that is it sends out this burst of adrenaline, rushes through our body. We can often feel that surge of energy that comes from that adrenaline rush. Our heart races, our breath quickens. It's a full body response to be in that stress response. But the whole intent, Guy, like the whole neurobiology, all of the chemicals, everything involved is for one purpose and one purpose only: to take action. And so when we are in that high energy state, and it is the highest energy state that we have as a human body, and this is why some people will intentionally stress themselves out, or they may become adrenaline junkies in order to feel most alive, because it is true. Like, this is when we feel the most alive. And I've seen people do this, create stress in their lives. I've worked with a lot of kids who have significant attachment trauma and watch them literally create drama. And it's, it's fascinating to see this stress response can be so familiar to some people that they need to create it in order just to feel normal in their day. But when that threat or danger, whether it's emotional, psychological, physical, it does not matter. There's only one stress response and there's only one trauma response in the body. And anything that for any reason at that time in our life overwhelmed our stress response and its ability to take action, if it gets overwhelmed, the body goes into a trauma response. And it literally takes that adrenaline, which is like having our gas pedal all the way to the floor, and it's like throwing on the emergency brake. So your foot can still be on that gas pedal. It doesn't take away the fact that there might still be this adrenaline surging through your blood and your tissues, but you have just now thrown on that emergency brake. Your car comes screeching to a halt. Your energy drains, and guess what? Like, you stop taking action. The whole purpose of this freeze response, this trauma response, is to collapse, is to stop, is to not take action, but instead conserve energy so that we can hopefully survive this thing. But we can only get into that trauma response going through the stress response, because it's the stress response itself that gets overwhelmed, leading a person and their body into this trauma response. And so then what happens is that the body, without resolution and being able to complete that cycle, it now kind of gets stuck in going into this freeze response. And then people start developing diseases over time. They start noticing that they have low energy all the time. They start noticing that they have sleep problems, chronic digestive problems. They have all of these downstream effects on their biology from their trauma response still playing out in their body.
Wow. And yeah, a couple of things just quickly came to my mind as you were talking. One is, you talked about adrenaline junkies, and it reminded me of combat vets who come back and they're like lost. And a lot of times they are seeking that, not just the camaraderie, but the adrenaline of the combat theater in a sense. Wow. What a I thank you for that really illustrative diagram of what's going on with the trauma response. But also you're talking about all these other kind of downstream effects that people, physicians or whomever are looking at and they're not being able to connect the dots. Give us an example of what that looks like, of how things are misdiagnosed.
Autoimmunity, chronic pain, chronic fatigue. Each of those are classic examples of a chronic freeze response in the body. This is the dorsal vagal response continuing to play out now over time, usually over years and years and years. And eventually it changes the biology of a person, causes enough baseline inflammation that it sets into play these diseases.
No.
And yet physicians, not knowing this lens of trauma, diagnose it as, well, you have an autoimmune condition and here's a medication for it. Or if I'm a functional medicine physician, here's a diet for it.
Mm-hmm.
Here's chronic pain. Well, here's the medications. Or if I'm an integrative practitioner, well, then here's some meditation and some other practices for chronic pain. And yet we're not really addressing what's driving each of these chronic diseases. And yet here we are also with the trauma therapists, and they're seeing people for the trauma side of things. And sometimes they don't realize that when they see that this person also has autoimmunity, also has chronic digestive issues, that is an expression, a manifestation of the trauma work and how accumulated the trauma has become in their body, and even how more gently they're going to need to do the trauma work for this person who has all of these downstream effects in their biology. Because it's almost like it's become even deeper ingrained in who they are, to the degree that it's affecting their physiology. And so to change that whole system takes more time and more gentleness. We're not going to be able to dive deep and fast into things because we'll actually re-traumatize the body and put it back into this overwhelmed, oh my goodness, that was too much too fast type of state.
Are you saying that there's a direct relationship, causative relationship between trauma and autoimmune disease, or sometimes there's that effect?
So what we have seen in the literature, and we can go back to the Adverse Childhood Experiences study. And this was the first study that really started to connect adult diseases, chronic diseases, with childhood trauma. And autoimmunity became one of the first ones that they saw. The first one was actually obesity and being overweight. That was what clued them in to the fact that there was that connection. But then it opened up their curiosity and they started looking at, well, what else might be connected? And they found a very strong association. Now, in science, we are never going to say causation. We're going to say association. But then along the way, there's been other elements that if you study functional medicine, for example, you know that these have to play a role for a person to develop an autoimmunity. One of those would be leaky gut and food sensitivity. So you actually have to have leaky gut and inflammation in your gut to develop an autoimmune condition. So what if you had childhood trauma and for whatever reason that I don't know is possible, but you might not have leaky gut, which I think that everybody who experiences trauma has leaky gut to a certain degree. And you might not develop the autoimmunity. You might develop the chronic fatigue. You might develop the fibromyalgia. You might develop something else. And so all of our life experiences, our epigenetics, our genetics, it all comes together into the pot to decide what will be your downstream effect of having this nervous system that's driving disease. But which disease? Wow. There's a lot of factors that go into which one it will be for you.
Culturally, I mean, at this stage of where we are things changing in terms of professionals, physicians becoming more aware of that trauma lens you were talking about?
I want to say yes. And to a certain degree, I want to say yes. And yet, I mean, Dr. Vincent Folletti has been doing this work and put out this first adverse childhood experiences study in 1980. We are several decades into this, and it is still not in conventional medicine yet. he has shown through studies that are very strong, statistically significant, that just by asking a person, what were some experiences in your life? And do you think that this disease or symptom that you have right now has anything to do with something that has happened in your life before? Simply by asking Guy. And this was fascinating and it blew my mind, right? Because being a physician, I want to do things. I want to fix things.
Mm-hmm.
Why I didn't become a therapist and a psychiatrist. I don't want to just talk. I want to do. No offense, please, Guy. So I saw this study and he's talking to me about it. And he says, just by asking, that is the treatment.
Mm.
And yet that is not what happens in conventional medicine yet. And these studies are decades old. Why aren't they? Well, because what those studies showed was that it decreased the emergency room rate by 30%.
Oh boy.
So imagine the conventional medical system that runs on health insurance, that runs on people having emergencies and needing to go to the emergency room. Like this is where their revenue comes from. Imagine if they actually implemented this and people stopped needing to go see the doctor as much and started getting better and feeling better simply because they were being heard and they had a space to talk about these things that otherwise you just don't talk about these things. It decreased the amount of emergency room visits by 30%.
That's amazing. And it's crazy and it's sad and frightening.
All of those.
Yeah. I mean, to what degree also do you think comes into play the fact that just trauma in and of itself is almost like a hot potato in our culture? No one wants to talk about it except me and you. But, what is it? That traumatized you. That wouldn't traumatize me. Where does that come into play too?
What I see is that it makes people uncomfortable because they haven't dealt with their own.
Right.
And so if I have stuff that I start feeling bubbling up just by hearing you, I don't want to hear you. I need to put distance between me and you. Let me put something, right?
Mm-hmm.
I need to protect myself because if this stuff bubbles up, I fall apart and I can't fall apart. I have 30 more patients to see today. And then I have a family that I have to go take care of. And then I've got this, and then I've got that. So I can't afford to fall apart. Mm-hmm. And so it makes us so uncomfortable to be around people who are letting their stuff surface because we've got to keep our stuff down.
Let me just remind everyone, I'm talking with Dr. Aimie Apigian. All right, let's just pause here for a second to thank our sponsors. All right, we are back. So, Aimie, how do you work? Okay, so you have all this incredible knowledge and your perspective. What do you do?
What do I do, right?
What do you do?
I so appreciate that, Guy. You got me. You understand my need to do things and to fix things. What do? I take everything that I've experienced and everything that I've learned to really develop a pathway that people can follow. I can guide them down this pathway to gently start addressing the stored trauma in their body. So even as a medical physician, I actually start people with 21 days of somatic work. This is basic somatic work, largely influenced by my training in somatic experiencing with Dr. Peter Levine, where I then took my training, because I did that training to help myself at the time, wasn't ever intended to be something that I do with my work. But I took that and I applied it to my own life, and I figured out what I needed to do from that on a daily basis to make this work, to see change in my own life, to see change in my own health. And so when people come to me now, that's actually where I start them, because that somatic work will gently start to create moments of safety for them. Mm. And we are so used to living in our heads Our heads have been our safe place. We love to read about stuff or watch a video about stuff, listen to a podcast about stuff, but experience it? No, thank you. Let me stay in my head. That's our safe space. And so being able to come in and say, but I need you in your body. Like I need mind and body actually connected. And how we do that is through these basic somatic tools where your mind is putting its attention on different sensations in the body, understanding it, but understanding it with the intention of, I want to create an experience of safety for you right now. So that's the first 7 days. The next 7 days, I'm teaching them somatic tools to create a felt sense of support for themselves. And so much of this process, Guy, is them being empowered to do this for themselves. Just that is helping them get out of the trauma response. I can do something, and I can do something for myself. I'm not helpless. I'm not powerless. I'm not stuck. No matter what's going on, I've got tools right now that I can pull out, and I can create this safety, this support for myself.
Let me just interject, if I may, for a second. So these people who are coming to you, who are they? Anyone who's suffered trauma?
Yes. And actually more and more professionals are coming to me. So professionals, both in the medical field and in the mental health space, they're coming. Some of the professionals want to go into my training program and become a biology of trauma professional. And this is the prerequisite for that, is this somatic work. But a lot of them recognize, I've got my own trauma work to do. Mm-hmm. And here I am trying to help people. And I'm noticing that my body is still reacting to some people. My body's getting tired at the end of the day. Like I notice that I'm going still into a freeze or a trauma response with the work that I do. It's limiting my ability to help people.
What I'm also hearing here is a kind of reversal of the Western medical paradigm too, right? Where oftentimes, not always, obviously but oftentimes when people go to a physician, it's okay, the physician is going to, heal the person, but you're empowering the client coming to you. Okay, so continue. So you've got the first
that's
days.
Just such an important point that you highlighted there. So again, like we've given our power away, and then we get upset when mistakes are made, or we've put our hopes onto something, and yet being that we live with our own body, like we truly can become the experts on our body. And I think that every person should become the experts of their own body, and specifically their nervous system. Mm. So that not only do they have the understanding of which state of the nervous system am I in right now? Am I in stress? Am I in trauma? Am I in parasympathetic? Which of those 3 states of the nervous system am I in at any given moment? And am I okay with being here? Or do I want to use some of my tools to shift into a different state? But that sense of empowerment is important. So I am clear that my role is not to fix you, not to heal you. My role is to create the environment in which the transformation could happen when you show up and do the work. I show you what work needs to be done, but I can't do the work for you. Mm-hmm. I create the environment in which the transformation can happen when you show up and you do the work.
How much of that perspective was born out of your own experience going through trauma, experiencing trauma?
Everything. Like that was one of the hard lessons that I got to learn with my adopted son, Miguel, is I went into it expecting that I could be the one to heal him from his pain and his past. And I had to learn that that wasn't my job. My job is to create the environment. In that case, it's creating the home environment and creating the relationship environment that he could choose the healing. Mm-hmm. But he had to choose that. So,
okay, continue on. So the first 7 days, second 7 days, then what happens after that for people?
So the last week, that last 7 days, I'm teaching them exercises on expansion. And this is safe expansion. And that might not be a term that many people are used to, but expansion is really the only place where we experience joy where we experience healthy anger, where we can actually process past trauma in a healthy way. All of that takes place in this state of expansion rather than collapse and restriction. And yet many people thinking that, oh, I want to experience more joy in life, they try to just go to expansion first without laying that foundation of, no, you need to feel safe first. And your body needs to feel supported first. And then it can move into expansion. I see safety and support as being like the two legs that we stand on. And when those are strong and stable, it allows our upper body to move, to dance, to move into expansion. But without those foundational legs, you're going to actually potentially create another trauma response as your body expands and then contracts immediately because it's like, I don't have the support for this. I don't have the safety for this. And I need to collapse in order to move back into what feels safe to me. And it's fascinating because I've started to study the people who go through my 21-day journey program because I was seeing changes, but being a physician, right? Like I think in numbers and I need to be able to objectively measure this change, guy. Please don't laugh at me. So I started collecting data from them. And we have the data back now. We've collected data from 2 different 21-day journeys. We're doing a 3rd one right now. And just from the beginning to the end, just those 21 days, people experience, and these were all statistically significant numbers. Not only do they experience a 60% increase in felt sense of safety, but then get this, because of that, 26% decrease in daily physical pain.
Wow.
28% decrease in GI symptoms. 28% decrease in sleep issues. 30% decrease in anxiety. 30% decrease in depression. We have these numbers that show that, wait a second, what you're doing here that you just think are these simple somatic exercises, 10 minutes a day, they're actually changing something in your body, that it's actually changing your daily physical pain levels. There are people who go through this program that they message me afterwards and they say, I don't know what happened. I don't know what you just did to me, but I no longer need my pain medications. I just got off my arthritis pain medications and I don't need them anymore. We've had other people get off their thyroid medications. Why? Because like their physiology is now coming from this place of safety that they've learned to create for themselves, not waiting on other people to do this, not waiting on life to do this for them. They are intentional now about, no, I create safety in my daily life. I create a felt sense of support in my daily life. And then our physiology changes as a result of that. So we're literally living now from a physiology of safety rather than this physiology of fear, which will always drive disease and pain.
Now, is this people who've experienced the broad range of traumas?
Yes, we don't qualify that. We say, this is what it is. This is the journey that I guide you into. You are more than welcome if you want to show up and do the work and see what's possible for you. So it is not at all based on any specific form of trauma or the fact that they think that they've even had trauma. That's not the point. The point is you have a body, you have a nervous system, you need to become the expert in it. So come on, let's do the work.
And in terms of intervention, you mentioned somatic experiencing. Is that the basis of what you're doing?
For this initial phase, yes. Okay. And then once they complete that basic somatic work for the 21 days, then we step into parts work and biology work. So those are the 3 components that I integrate into the path and the journey that I create for people. I start with that somatic work just because, again, from the data that I'm now seeing as well, that kind of proves my point is that is the place to start. Because if I try to start with biology, then I'm working still from this biology of fear. And it's always going to be up and down and all over the place, depending on your day, depending on how much fear you had that day. Whereas if I can stabilize that, if I can help regulate your nervous system, that's what stabilizes your biology. And now you've got a different baseline. We can come in and we can look at your biology. And we look at things including attachment. We look at things including neurodevelopment. And do you have any neurodevelopmental gaps that would actually be feeding the dysregulation of your nervous system? So here I have, Guy, grown-ass adults, professionals around the world who are on the floor doing a tummy crawl in order to repair the neurodevelopmental gap that they seem to have in their nervous system. It's incredible. And for some of them, they're not able to do it at first. Just getting down on the floor on their tummy, it starts to just bring up so much stuff that doesn't have memories. It doesn't even have words. They maybe just start crying. And so sometimes it can take some time just to be able to get comfortable enough to do that work, to be on the floor. But we do attachment, neurodevelopment. We do a lot of the gut health. And so we do gut health, which includes grief work. We do stress work. So we actually work to empower our stress response, not diminish our stress response, but actually strengthen our stress response so that we can stay in that stress longer and not go into the trauma response. The trauma response is where most of the damage comes to our biology, the downstream long-term effects on our biology and our disease. So once we've worked on that freeze response and we work with mitochondria, we work with all of the things that are draining our energy. Inflammation is a big one. Neurotransmitters are another one. We're all working to regulate the nervous system just through these different ways. The biology work, the parts work, and the somatic work, integrating all of them for the final net effect of regulating that nervous system, because that's what's going to change a person's health, physical health, mental health, emotional health, more than anything else.
You know, the idea of being empowered as a trauma survivor is really interesting. I mean, and it's very inspiring because it's almost the antithesis, right, of what someone's experience is. So just to hear you talk about that, it's very inspiring to me. The other thing that's very interesting to me is, you know, the way you talk, Aimie, I can feel your experience moving through almost everything you say. And I'm wondering, could you imagine, like when you were going through medical school and became a physician, could you imagine hearing yourself now speak? Because stereotypically, it's very different from a lot of Western physicians, correct?
Very different.
And obviously there are exceptions out there, but what bridges that gap? Your experience, having experienced trauma?
Yeah, and this is actually takes me back to the last conversation that I had with Dr. Gabor Mate, where he said, both you and I, our work is not recognized by the conventional medical system because it's just too different. Like they don't even know what to do with it. It's so different from their model. It's not like, oh, here's a new protocol. Here's a new diagnosis. Let's put this in the DSM-5. Right. It's so different that they don't even know what to do with it. And so when I was first starting out in my medical training, I had no idea that this is where I would land. I mean, this is very much the accumulation of my experiences. And then, yes, I do feel that at a certain point, I had this calling that I could choose to step into. And I definitely see that I am living my purpose and am very much enjoying it.
Well, you can feel it. I mean, you can feel you're living your purpose. I mean, it's so exciting. My God. All right. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you as we kind of wind down here? Before you answer that, so you have a summit coming up. I know it's not coming up till August, but tell us a little bit about that. Who it's for, what it's about, where it is.
Yeah. So this is my third annual Biology of Trauma Summit. And have a lot of great speakers lined up. Dr. Gabor Mate is coming back again. Dr. Peter Levine, Dr. Stephen Porges, Dr. Bruce Lipton is another one. Dr. Mark Hyman.
Lightweights, basically. Lightweights of the field.
So, I mean, again, like I get so excited that I get to be at the center of all of this and bring them all together and make this magic happen. So the theme for this year's summit is the trauma disease connection and the path to freedom. And so being able to look at what are those diseases that have that association with trauma, that we just haven't had that lens, haven't had that eyesight. And then what do we do about it? Right. So I always want to share that hope. I always want to share that, and there's so much we can do about this.
Right.
And so it will be including that, the path to freedom.
So is this online?
This is all online.
Okay.
And free registration, August 1 through 7. And so I would make sure that you're getting my email so that you can get that registration link when it opens, because it's going to open the end of July. I'm also happy to send that over to you as well. And people can subscribe to my newsletter on my website, traumahealingaccelerated.com. And that would be how they will make sure that they get that registration information when it goes live end of July.
Okay. I'll make sure to have that linked up here at the show notes page at the traumatherapistpodcast.com. Aimie, man, always amazing to speak with you and so freaking inspiring. Really. I love it. And you're awesome. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Guy. It's always wonderful to spend time with you.
All right. Take care.